Hello, my name is Dan Ramaswami. I'm the Senior Vice President of Field Engineering for Andesite. Andesite is a bionic SOC transformation company born out of a mission-driven focus for national security as well as traditional commercial enterprises. Our diverse background includes deep cybersecurity experience, traditional Silicon Valley technology, as well as a mission focus on national security. What we set out to build at Andesite is a bionic data platform that takes advantage of all of the data available within an organization. That includes signal generation, organizational context, as well as event context, so that the analysts or operators can make decisions that they need to make with all of the data present without any need for ETL. We also believe that it is extraordinarily important to maintain the control of humans at the helm. The combined strengths of the inquisitive analyst mindset, the human that sits at the helm, as well as the programmatic power of the agentic AI combined, but with control, is where we really see the returns. We can control every step along the way that the agent performs, how it interacts with the agent, the tooling that it's allowed to collect data from, how it's allowed to collect that data, all to use that to present back to the analyst what's relevant and important for them to make their decisions. Andesite is able to bring together disparate data islands and data sources, including all different types of signal generation points. So all of the types of alerts that your team is going to operate on, we can bring those together into a single prioritized view. This prioritized view allows operations teams to figure out what is relevant for them in their organization, prioritized on organizational relevance, not just based on industry accepted impact. Andesite is able to provide a view to the analysts of all of the alerts that belong together, visualize the relations in between all of those disparate alerts, as well as provide enrichment, going out and investigating within the tooling all of the relevant information that belongs with this event or group of events so that the analyst can make a decision as to what the next step may be. Instead of having to go and swivel chair between multitudes of tooling and have to have years and years of experience to know how to massage the tooling specifically with syntax, they can interact directly with the configurable agents and allow the agents to collect together all of the additional information that's required to make a decision at that time. By leveraging a configurable agent, an analyst without the experience and knowledge of syntax for all of the tooling is able to perform complex queries and complex tasks, not having to rely on a bunch of syntax that they've spent years learning, and also not having to know which tools to use at specific times. The agent will go out and collect all of the information and summarize it in a useful form so the analysts themselves can get better at what it is that they do, performing analysis. Once an analyst has determined that they've got an event and it's something that should be escalated, we can take advantage of their normal case management system. They can set all the relevant fields that are needed for their particular case management or ticketing system, continuing along in the escalation path that's required by the organization. In addition to being able to take advantage of their existing ticketing system, they can continue along the investigative path by using our investigative workspace. Following this investigative process allows us to continue the investigation right from within the platform, continuing to leverage the power of the AI, as well as the ability to bring in additional resources as needed. In addition to the ability to work with structured data, signal points as we're all familiar with, we can also work with unstructured data, such as PDFs or URLs that go through wild amounts of documentation. This particular report is over 45 pages of atomic indicators, tactics and techniques, and things employed by an ATP. This would take a team hours upon hours to process through and figure out how to ask the tooling what it should do with it. But instead of having to assign a team to a conference room to spend hours and hours figuring this out, instead we can have Andesite process it by simply uploading a file source or pointing at a URL. We can pull in all of the same information that would be contained in these types of reports and operate on them, leveraging the power of the agents that we've configured. What the agents do are everything that a team of analysts would do, which includes building out the questions that need to be asked and querying all of the tooling relevant to make the decision as to what it means to that particular organization. Instead of having to do this manually, the agents are able to do it and provide us back with a risk assessment, which tells us exactly what this means in our organization, a concise list of recommended actions, meaning what we should do about it, present back all of the steps performed so that we can make sure that it's staying on the path that it should, again, the point of evidentiary AI, build a table of indicators of compromise, including whether we've had sightings of them or not, and maintain a library of all the documents so that in future time, we can take advantage of historical processes. These documents can also be leveraged within investigations, and all of the relevant information that's produced can be seen and used during the process of triaging and investigating alerts as well as during investigations. Ultimately, it's all about what the platform does, all about what it means to the impact of the operation. We can take a look at these different metrics that are very, very important. We can see the mean time to detect, mean time to respond, mean time to triage, mean time to auto triage, meaning when the agent has found a truly irrelevant event that doesn't require human interaction, it's auto triaged out the white noise, allowing the analyst to focus on exactly what's important, and we can see exactly how long it took. We can look at these numbers across mean, median, min, and max, allowing us to get a pulse of exactly what's going on within our operation and the value that the Andesite platform is bringing to us. For Andesite, it all begins at the data layer. We've taken advantage of all of the disparate data islands that make up the security stack for your security operations team. We can programmatically connect to all of these, allowing the agents to interact directly with the tooling, freeing the analyst up from having to have years of training of syntax just to know how to massage the tools to get the answers that they need. We can take advantage of signal generation, NDRs, EDRs, SIMs, whatever the signal generation point for your security operations team is, we're going to query those for the same signals that your analysts operate off of. In addition to signal, we're also able to put together organizational context. We can bring in information such as security operations procedures. We can also bring in information about the architecture of the environment that we're working in. We can take advantage of things in Confluence or in SharePoint, or even just by importing in documents that contain this information. All of this can be used as context that the agent can take advantage of and provide relevant information to the analysts when they need it most, when they're making the decision, and when they're working through alert triage. At Andesite, we truly believe that the combination of the power of the agentic AI with the inquisitive mindset of the analyst is super important. By taking advantage of both of those strengths put together, we firmly believe that the human should remain at the helm and control not only the agents, but how the agents interact with them directly. There's a multitude of different configurable agents that we can produce, such as an analyst mentor designed to take first-level analysts, allow them to ask direct questions of the tooling, and provide back very verbose answers that not only detail what it is that the tools returned, but also give them guidance as to how they should perform their task, how they should continue along in the operation. All of this is what we believe is the control portion or the control mechanism for maintaining the humans at the helm. By giving guidance to the agent, we can directly impact how they interact with the tooling as well as how they interact with the analysts themselves. We can also control the scope of what the agent is allowed to perform by allowing it to only perform direct queries or only connect to specific tooling. We can also add documentation so that that particular agent has guidelines around how and when it should interact with specific data and the proper steps that it should perform as if it were being guided directly by the analyst sitting at the helm steering the ship. In addition to the ability to build configurable agents, which control how agents themselves directly interact with the tooling, we can also implement enrichment playbooks. Enrichment playbooks are designed to operate on the data and the alerts before they're even presented to the analyst, allowing those analysts to see all of the enrichment that the playbook can produce so that the analysts don't have to go and collect it on their own. We can control specific actions, specific tools, as well as give guidance on how those tools should be used and how the response should be constructed so that the analyst can make the relevant decision they need to make as soon as they're presented with the alert. So think of all of the triage steps that an analyst would have to perform manually. Instead of them even having to do any of those steps, it's all produced and is displayed when the alert's displayed to the analyst. In addition to the ability to control and produce enrichment for the analyst, we can also automate specific actions such as changing a status or a disposition if we've looked at an event that we know has a disposition or a status that the enrichment playbook has determined to be true. Now that we've discussed all of the controlling mechanisms that maintain the human at the helm, I'd like to go through how the human uses the helm to go through alert triage. The traditional way of working through alerts and events for an analyst is to look at single-line signal that's produced by the signal-generating devices. This is an exact representation of what an alert might look like as it comes out of Elastic and is presented to an analyst. The alert title, as well as all of the relevant information that was collected, everything that was used to produce the signal. This is where a tier 1 analyst generally has the most difficult portion of their task. They have to make a decision as to whether this is something that's relevant and whether it should be escalated to a tier 2 or a tier 3 analyst. And what we found is instead of this tier 1 approach of single line signals, what tier 2s and tier 3s tend to do is instead of looking at single line signals, they look at alert grouping. we are able to algorithmically approach alerts and correlate them together and produce what we call alert groups. Alert groups are a cross correlation of those single line event signals grouped together, whether that be based on the IP address of the source workstation inside your environment, or whether that be based on the domain or IP on the internet, or whether it be the actual tactic or technique or things that are being performed combined together to group them so that the analyst can see everything together. So instead of looking at over 20 pages of alerts that they have to sift through to figure out what's relevant, they can be presented with an alert grouping list, which tells them only the groups of alerts that they need to work on, also prioritized based on the context of the organization that they're operating. We're immediately able to see disposition as well as resolution for each individual group of alerts, and we can see the prioritized list leads me to this particular alert group that I need to work on first. The power of AI is that it can reason across all of the events that make up this alert group. It can then provide a summary of what this group of alerts means to the analysts themselves. So I can see immediately that this is a group of 14 items connected by 343 different shared field values. And instead of only looking at this in the construct of this is a group of alerts, I can also see what are those different connections between the alerts, the entities, as well as the execution paths along the way to produce this alert group that I can now continue the process of investigation and triage. So in addition to being able to show the linkage between all of the alerts within the alert group, the platform can also produce enrichments. As we discussed earlier in enrichment playbooks, the platform can go off and collect all the relevant context that's important through the investigation and triage of this event or group of events, also that the analyst does not have to go out and manually connect to every single individual tool just to cobble together all of the relevant information to get a complete picture of what this alert means or this alert group means within our environment. We also believe that all AI should be evidentiary. Every single tool call should be exposed to the analyst. They should see every thought that the AI or the agent had on their behalf and be able to provide feedback so that our QA process can make sure that we're tailoring it to the organization that we're running it. By taking advantage of all of the tooling, we can also allow the power of AI to produce a summary of all of what this means to us. Present us with action items that we should follow and give a step-by-step summary of everything that it did along the way to produce this entirely enriched alert group. At this point, an analyst can start to directly interact with the configurable agents that we discussed earlier, and we can select any of the personas that we would like to, whether that be a deep senior security operations analyst, a cyber threat intelligence analyst, or even an analyst mentor that can help a tier 1 or a junior in career individual get better at what they do. We can start to directly interact with the agent as well as the tooling, because the agent itself is going to go and directly query the tools on our behalf so that we don't have to manually do it. Instead of having to know the syntax to massage the tooling, the analyst can ask a question in normal language. So on our behalf, the agent that we selected went out, queried all the tools that were relevant to answer the question that it needed to answer, as well as gave me guidance as a tier 1 junior analyst about additional information that I should know. I wanted to know if there were other malicious activities before we saw the PowerShell history cleared. It's not only giving me a timeline of what occurred, but it's also giving me information about exactly what this means. So at this point, as a junior analyst, I'm getting much better at what I do. I can see the scope of compromise. I can also see all the details about everything that occurred. I also asked it, based on my company's standard operating procedures, what should I do next? And by using the power of the organizational context, it was able to look at exactly what our procedures are and give me guidance exactly what my next step should be. So my next step should be containment and network isolation. After that, I should do investigation actions within the next 2 hours. And throughout the entire process, everything that's within my operating procedure, including critical escalation requirements, are all documented and laid out for me so that I know exactly what I should do. In addition to querying all the tooling and figuring out what my next steps should be, it's also going to give me guidance on if I would like to continue down the investigative or triage process. These bubbles below give me guidance to the next potential steps during the pathway. I already know that I have a true incident on my hands, so I know that I need to follow my escalation procedure, which involves creating a case within our case management system. So at this point, I can follow my organization's procedure. I can take all of this information that I've collected with the help of the agent as well as the enrichment process. I can manipulate any severity or any classification information adhering to my procedures kick this off, and go ahead and create the case with all the relevant fields filled in according to my organization's operating procedure. In addition to following the operating procedure and creating cases and tickets in the relevant places that those need to occur, I can also, within Andesite, create an investigation. This is going to collect together all of the information that we've produced, all of the chat that we've already performed, all of the groups of alerts, and I can put these into a case or I can put these all into an investigation and then continue to interact with the platform while following through on the investigation. In addition to collecting all the relevant sources together, I can also collaborate with additional members of my team, giving them access to see it, as well as assigning a different owner if I need to escalate this to a higher tier. All of the information that we've collected together into this investigation, we can leverage the power of the AI to give a summary of all of the things that we've collected thus far. All of those individual alerts can produce this summary, which gives us a good summary of exactly what these things mean. We can see all of the sources that were involved with this investigation, see conversations if there were documents that we processed, all the questions that were asked of the tooling, an audit log of the entire investigation, any notes that we've shared amongst the team as well during the process of investigation, and a table of IOCs that have been produced by a document as well. Status as well as disposition for individual investigations is also tracked within the platform so that we can use this to produce metrics on how the investigations are tracking through your process. In addition to the ability to work on structured data that's produced by signal generation points such as SIM or EDR or NDR, we can also operate on unstructured information, which is also a very common point of entry for cyber threat intelligence analysts as well as other security operations teams. These reports come in various different formats. They could be in a PDF or they could be a URL that you're monitoring for different threat feeds. This information is generally chock full of really useful information, but to process it is very, very difficult and arduous. It takes a team of many individuals to get together, digest what the report means, extract out any of the atomic indicators, understand the tactics and techniques employed, all so that they can produce what we can leverage Andesite to do, which is to take this same 45-page document, drop it into the platform, and allow it to process it on our behalf. We can drop it in, or I can just review one that I've already run. And what the platform has done for us is it's produced an executive overview, a TLDR, letting us know exactly what the report means. But it's also built a summary of all of the information contained with it so that we can see what this means in our environment. More importantly, it's produced a risk assessment. And this is not an industry standard risk assessment. This is a risk assessment identifying exactly what the risk is in our environment based upon all of the questions that the platform asked of the tooling that is the equivalent to what a very senior team would labor to produce in a conference room over the course of probably 10 to 20 hours. The questions that we need to ask the tooling and the resultant data that's produced. Again, always exposed, always shown to the analyst so that they can see exactly what was done. Evidentiary AI. Every single thought, every single tool return, all together to produce exactly what it is that we need, which is this summary, this risk assessment, and a very concise list of recommended actions or corrective actions that we should take as a result of reviewing this particular document. We can also see a table of indicators of compromise. We can see them within the light of whether we've cited them or whether we have not. We can also export this if we wanted to put it into a control mechanism and take the corrective action that we produce within the recommended actions. Everything that we've done in the platform thus far is all to make your security operations much more efficient. The way to see the efficiency is through our SOC dashboard, which highlights things such as mean time to detect, mean time to respond, mean time to triage, mean time to investigate, and any time that we've taken advantage of enrichment performing auto triage, what the platform has auto triaged away so that your analysts haven't had to waste any time, what the time spent by the machine doing that looks like. These different metrics we could go through with mean, median, min, and max, look back over various time frames so that we can gauge exactly how well we're doing across the operation. We can also export all of these historic trends so that we can incorporate them in additional reporting mechanisms that we use in our operation. By combining the power of agentic AI and the inquisitive mindset of a human being at the helm, Andesite brings together the best of technology, increasing the efficiency of security operations, up-leveling the skill of your analysts, freeing them from the tyranny of syntax and allowing your operations to be much more effective using the bionic platform that Andesite has provided.